Inside your body, right this very second, there's a war going on. And the commanders, the messengers, the ultimate weapons in this war, they're these tiny microscopic proteins called cytokines. They're the reason you heal, the reason you fight off a cold, but believe it or not, they can also be the reason your own body turns on itself. So, let's dive into how these powerful little molecules walk that fine line between being our protector and our destroyer.
Just let that sink in for a minute. During one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, it wasn't always the virus that was killing people. No, it was their own immune system's insane overreaction, all orchestrated by these cytokines. So how on earth can our greatest defense become our most dangerous enemy? Well, to figure that out, we've got to understand the messengers themselves.
All right, so let's get right into it. What exactly are these powerful little things? Okay, so at their core, cytokines are basically the communication network for your immune system. They're these little proteins that your cells release to send instructions to other cells. Just think of them as urgent texts, all-hands emails, and system-wide alerts that get all your body's defenses on the same page when a threat shows up. Now, what's really cool is how flexible this whole system is. A cytokine can be what's called autocrine, sending a message right back to the cell that made it, kind of like a little note to self. Or it can be paracrine, only affecting cells right next door, like a neighborhood watch alert. But then it can also go endocrine, traveling all the way through your bloodstream to give orders to the entire body. That's a full-on, system-wide emergency broadcast. And this is where it gets really sophisticated. This isn't just a simple one-message, one-action system. Oh no. You've got pleiotropy, where one single cytokine can have a bunch of different effects on different cells. There's redundancy, where different cytokines can do the exact same job, which is a great backup system to have, right? They can work together for a stronger effect. That's synergy. Or they can even cancel each other out to keep things in check. That's antagonism. It's an unbelievably complex language. Okay, so imagine a virus or some bacteria breaks through your defenses. What happens next? Well, the first responders of your immune system sound the alarm. And guess how they do it? With cytokines. Let's meet a couple of the most important ones. First up, we've got interleukin-1 beta, or as we'll call it, IL-1 beta. This guy is one of the main alarm bells in your entire immune system. The second your cells sense danger, they start pumping out IL-1 beta. And its mission is super clear. Kick off inflammation and do it now. You know that fever you get when you're sick? That's IL-1 beta telling your brain to crank up the heat, making your body a really terrible place for germs to multiply. It wakes up the little Pac-Man cells of your immune system, the phagocytes, telling them it's time to start eating invaders. It's a master recruiter, calling in all the reinforcements to the battle. It's kind of crazy to think that all those miserable feelings of being sick, that's just a sign that IL-1 beta is doing its job perfectly. All right. Working right alongside IL-1 beta is its very powerful partner, tumor necrosis factor alpha, or TNF-alpha. And this one is a major player in the inflammation game. So TNF-alpha basically opens up the highways for your immune cells. It tells the walls of your blood vessels to become a little leaky so your white blood cells can squeeze through and get into the infected tissue where the fight is. It also helps get the more specialized part of your immune system fired up. And just like its name suggests, it was actually discovered because of its ability to kill tumor cells, a truly powerful and versatile weapon in the arsenal. So, the alarm has sounded, the first responders are on the scene, but for the really tough infections, you need to call in the specialists. And this is where cytokines play their next huge role. They call in and direct the absolute elite forces of our immune system. This is where your adaptive immune system kicks in. So think of T helper cells as these highly trained soldiers just waiting for their orders. The cytokines are those orders. And depending on which cytokine signal they get, these T helper cells will literally transform into the exact type of specialist you need for that specific threat. It's amazing. And this breaks it down perfectly. If your body is fighting off something like a virus, a cytokine called IL-12 tells the T helper cells, okay, you're now Th1 cells. We can call them the generals. They command cell-to-cell combat, using weapons like interferon gamma to activate killer cells that go in and destroy infected cells directly. But if the threat is, say, a parasite or an allergen, a totally different cytokine, IL-4, gives the order to become Th2 cells, the arms dealers. They ramp up the mass production of antibodies, which are perfect for tagging and neutralizing invaders floating around in your system. So you see, two totally different threats, two completely specialized responses, and it's all directed by cytokines. But just as important as starting a war is knowing when to end it. And that's the job of the T regulatory cells, or TRIGs for short. These are the peacekeepers. They use their own special set of cytokines like IL-10 and TGF-beta to tell all the other ramped-up immune cells to stand down. They're what stop your immune system from accidentally attacking your own body, which is exactly what happens in autoimmune diseases. They are absolutely essential for bringing back peace and order. Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started. What happens when there are no peacekeepers? What happens when those messages of war become a deafening, uncontrolled scream? Well, that's when you get a cytokine storm. A cytokine storm is really just a catastrophic feedback loop. The inflammatory signals just keep amplifying themselves over and over again, creating this runaway freight train of a reaction. The very things designed to save you, like leaky blood vessels and a flood of immune cells, go into complete overdrive, causing massive damage, organ failure, and, way too often, death. This is what was happening back in 1918. And we see this in modern diseases, too. With Ebola, a huge part of what makes it so lethal is this massive, uncontrolled release of cytokines, like our old friend TNF-alpha. The immune response itself becomes way more dangerous than the virus it's supposed to be fighting. It's a truly terrifying example of our body's own power turned against us. But here's the hopeful part. If we understand this language, this complex system of cytokine messages, maybe we can learn to control it. Maybe we can actually hack the system for our own good. And that is exactly what modern medicine is trying to do. I mean, if a disease is being driven by a constant harmful cytokine signal, what if we could just intercept the message before it gets delivered? And scientists have come up with two really clever ways to do this. First, we can create things called monoclonal antibodies. Think of them like tiny heat-seeking missiles that are designed to do one thing: find a specific cytokine, like TNF-alpha, and neutralize it. The other strategy is to create decoy receptors. These are molecules that look exactly like the real thing on a cell. They float around and act like a sponge, just soaking up all the harmful cytokines before they have a chance to deliver their inflammatory message. And this isn't some kind of science fiction. This is happening right now. These anti-cytokine therapies have totally revolutionized how we treat all sorts of autoimmune diseases. Things like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, and Crohn's disease, where the whole problem is just chronic, damaging inflammation driven by these cytokines. By silencing those specific messages, we can bring real relief to millions of people. Which leaves us with a pretty incredible thought, doesn't it? Cytokines are the language our cells use to defend us, to repair us, and to keep everything in balance. For so long, we could only hear the noise, but now we're starting to actually understand the words. And as we get more and more fluent in this internal language, you just have to wonder, what's the next conversation we'll be able to join, and what's the next disease we're going to learn how to silence?